Well, this is the same thing with network marketing and the exposures. Your goal is always get to the next exposure. Okay, now with that said, so let's break this down here. You get a prospect that you've opened up a conversation with, right? And you've used PS3. Remember we talked about that in a previous video about piquing the curiosity, giving them a little bit of information, kind of as a teaser that motivates them to want to know more. It makes them curious, right? So now that's an exposure, and they want to find out more. So what you want to do is transition that to the next exposure where you're going to share some information. And you want that time in between those exposures to be as short as possible. You know, if it can be hours, great. And if it's a day or 2 days, that's okay. What you don't want it to be is several days or a week or a month, God forbid. That will not work because you've lost the excitement curve, you've lost the interest level, and now you have to start from square one to rebuild that. So with that said also, you know, when you are transitioning from one exposure to the next, you sometimes have to revalidate what that first exposure was all about. Okay, so let's talk about what that looks like. So here's an example to illustrate this. You know, I have a prospect and I've met them, you know, in my travels, where I met them on Facebook. And so I've piqued their curiosity. You know, I found out a little bit about them. They've shared some information. We've done that small talk, that introduction stuff, get to know you conversation stuff, right? And I've identified that this person's hot button is the business opportunity. You know, they're looking for something to make money, right? And so I dropped that line, you know, hey, you need to really take a look at this. You know, I've got people that are working with me that have become car qualified in their first couple months, and you know, they're replacing their income. I stop right there. That's where I stopped. That's where I left it to create the curiosity. Now they come back to me and they say, I want to find out more. That's a qualifier. It's qualified that they are interested. Now it's up to me, because the ball's back in my court, so to speak, to give them more information and share something with them. Now, if that happens where I can say to them, hey, so you know, take a look at this video, or have you got time to get on a call, and you know, can we work that out, you know, later today or tonight, because I'm busy right now. And they say, yes, definitely give me a call after dinner tonight. That's what you want. You want to move it to the next exposure in the shortest period of time. But let's say, you know, they respond back and they say, you know, I'm busy for the next few days, so can you call me on Thursday? And it's Monday right now. Now, what's going to happen that you have to realize is that this person got a little bit of information. They go through their travels. They connect with their sphere of influence, so to speak, their spouse, their friends, their business partners, you know, their acquaintances. And it might come up in their conversation that, oh, you know, I ran into Sid, or I met this guy Sid on the internet, or I bumped into him at the bank, and he shared with me he's got this opportunity. He wants to talk to me about it, right? Now, the people that he comes into contact with might shoot that down. They might say, oh, you know, what's this guy all about? Is he in one of those Ponzi schemes? Is he in a pyramid scheme? Is it network marketing? I've been there, I've done that. Don't touch it with a 10-foot pole because it doesn't work. That's the reality of what can happen. So now you're working towards that next exposure on the Thursday, and you call that person up, right? And they've got a different mindset about everything now because they've been exposed to a whole different amount of feedback. And so what happens is they say, you know, I did some thinking about it and it's not for me. Okay, now this is where a lot of people fail, because they right away think, well, where do I go from here? You know, I can try to defend the position and try to sell them on it. And when you're really doing that, you're not really selling them, you're convincing them. You're trying to convince them, and it's like beating a dead horse or pushing, you know, up a river. And you can't do that. It doesn't work. So what you need to do is you need to revalidate what that conversation was about when you first piqued the curiosity, right? And so you have to understand that going in. And when you go in and you understand that, you can navigate around those things and overcome those objections and reframe that person's mind to where they're in a position of acceptance to the next exposure. So one of the things that I've learned to do, is that when I follow up and I'm transitioning to the next exposure, is I right away kind of cover off what we talked about last time, and I validate it. I kind of give it credibility by saying to them, hey, it was great to meet you the other day and great to speak, and you had expressed to me some interest in what I was sharing with you about my friend who's become car qualified in that, and I got to tell you that has been life-changing for that person. And I see you as one of those people that can happen to, and I would love to work with you to do that. Is that something that you'd want to do? Like, can you see yourself doing this, right? You want to validate that. You want to validate that they can do it. Now, when they get that sense of appreciation from you and that validation, they're more open now. And they might say, I did bounce this off a few people and I really didn't know that much, and they kind of gave me negative feedback. And you can automatically go to the other tools that we've talked about, feel, felt, found. Okay, remember we talked about that in a previous video. And you can say, hey, I understand how you feel. I've been there. I felt the same way, and I've had that happen, but this is different, and you need to really revisit why we started this conversation in the first place. And I want to show you why this is different. This is what I found. So feel, felt, found. You go back to that, and now you lead it to the next exposure, because remember, this is your goal. You want to get them a little more information, because all the way along what you're doing is you're building their belief system in what you are doing. So again, you're going to talk to them with a little bit of information. You're going to lead them to what is your goal on PS3, a three-way call. Okay? And we're going to talk about how you lead to the three-way call, because you don't just come out and say, hey, I'd like to get you on a three-way call. I've got this guy, he's a top income earner, and he can definitely give you the information you need to know. Well, people become fearful of that right away. They think that they're being hard sold. They think that you're bringing in the heavy closer, and that guy's going to be all pressure. So that's not the way to do this. What you want to do is just create the next exposure and say, I want to validate what it is that we were talking about, remember? And we want to give them a little bit more information that now, builds their belief system, and then get that permission and acceptance to set up another phone call. Okay, and you want to leave them. And you want to do that call. Remember, the transition between these and the period should be as short as possible. So let's say it is the Thursday, and say, listen, I don't want to leave this for another few days like we did last time. What I'd like to do is call you back. When's good? Can I call you back in an hour or two from now, or would tomorrow sometime be good? Let's nail down a time, because I got a pretty busy schedule, and I want to get back to you on this because I feel it's really important. Get their commitment. When they say, yeah, sure, Sid, you know what, you can call me back in an hour, or call me in the morning, I'm on it. Okay, and that's what you want to do, is the shortest period of time between those transitions. So now you get them on the next exposure. Okay, so now you've got 2 to 3 exposures that have occurred. Okay, and this third exposure is where you're going to do the three-way call. Now I'm going to do a whole different video here just on how to set up that three-way call, and how to manage that three-way call, and how to actually start up a three-way call, because I know there's some of you out there that maybe have never done a three-way call, and you don't even know that you can do a three-way call on your cell phone or your landline, or so that's something we're going to talk about. But so that exposure now is the third exposure, and that's the three-way call, and from there, you may have a fourth or fifth exposure where you're going to recap everything that was talked about. You're going to revalidate everything. Every time you get to the next exposure, validate what was discussed in the last exposure, so that you're always reinforcing the positivity and the choices that the guy is making in terms of wanting to know more information. Okay? And always keep the time in between those exposures as short as possible, because what it does, it keeps information fresh in his mind or her mind. It keeps the excitement level up, so that it doesn't diminish and deteriorate because of too much time going by, and it mitigates and minimizes the allowance for outside forces that don't know anything about what it is that we're talking about to, dissuade that person and cause negative responses, or resistance. Okay? Because the more time that's left in between, the more chances there are that he's going to share this with other people. And he goes off with really no ammunition, so to speak, because he doesn't really have all the facts and information yet, and he hasn't seen the whole picture. And he's sharing it with other people, and of course, they might turn it into a negative situation by giving them negative feedback. So you want to keep those exposures quick. You want to keep them condensed. You want to keep the time intervals between them as short as possible, and you want to move from one exposure to the next exposure to the next to the next to the next. And every exposure is revalidating the previous one. And then as you get through those exposures, the belief system is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, now one of the key things for you to do is to become a good listener, because when you're validating things and you're asking him questions, and he's going to start talking about himself, he's going to talk, or herself, they're going to start talking about what it is they see that they like about the products, about the opportunity. You want to listen very carefully, because those are the key things that identify needs, wants, and desires. Okay, these are the seats of motivation. They're tied to their passion, their heart, their mind, and their why. This is something that you really need to uncover in these exposures before you lead them to the sign-up process. You need to understand their why. Like, what would cause them to want to do this? Why do they want to do this? What do they want to see in their life? What are they lacking? What kind of things would they like to improve? Are they looking for more freedom of time? Are they looking for more money? Are they looking to pay off bills? All of these things. You want to learn about that person as you're building this relationship through those exposures. So exposures, guys, it takes time. You don't sign up somebody on the first get-go and then they join your business and they explode into this huge team. That doesn't happen. In fact, some people that push the sign-up process too quick and they get them signed up, some of those people end up quitting days after they signed up because they don't even understand why they signed up. They kind of felt pressured into it, or they maybe didn't do enough of their own soul searching to understand their own why, and after the fact of ordering a package or whatever, they get buyer's remorse. They go, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And of course now you got to go back and save the deal, so to speak. You got to try to salvage that situation. Now you can avoid all of that by understanding that you got to build a relationship and you got to go through these exposures, because by the time you get the person to where they have that belief system built, you understand their why, you have identified their needs, wants, desires, you've validated their decision in getting involved, and they now are starting to show some excitement for this, and they speak that. They say, I'm excited to do this, I can't wait to get started. That kind of stuff comes out of their mouth. Now they're in the right place, in the right frame of mind to commit. And that's what you want, is you want their commitment. So that's when you sign them up. That's when you say, okay, well, let's get you started today. Okay, you don't have to ask them, would you like to sign up? No, you're at the point where it's an assumption already. You know that they're going to join and that this is going to be great for them. So you say, let's get you started. You just assume the deal. Okay, you say, let's get you started. Okay, I can walk you through the sign-up process right now. Are you in front of your computer? And you bring them on board. Okay, so this video was about exposures. And we're going to talk extensively in this whole thing about exposures and the steps and transitioning. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about three-way call and how to utilize that three-way call, how to set it up, how to position it, how to get the person on the three-way call, and what to say, what not to say, when to stop talking. There's all these things that go into play in a three-way call that will either make or break the success of that three-way call. So I hope this is helpful, and have a great day. We'll get on to the next video.